Today, that is August 14th, marks International Memorial Day for Comfort Women. And this year, that is 2023, we mark the 10th anniversary of the first overseas installation of Korea's Statue of Peace. So how was the International Memorial Day for Comfort Women designated? What led to the first overseas installation of Korea's Comfort Woman statue in the US? And are we seeing progress in efforts to ensure closure for comfort women? Welcome to Issues and Insiders. Today we touch upon a painful chapter in history and ongoing efforts to raise awareness about the related atrocities and the need for acknowledgement and apology. For more, I have Phyllis Kim, Executive Director of Comfort Women Action for Redress and Education. Phyllis, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right then, Phyllis, let's begin with the meaning behind the International Memorial Day for Comfort Women, which falls on this August 14th.
Well, August 14, 1991 was the first time a survivor of a sexual violence during military conflict broke her silence willingly and publicly. Her name was Haksun Kim. So in 2012, civil organizations designated August 14 as the International Comfort Women Remembrance Day to commemorate this historical event. In 2017, the Korean government designated August 14 as the National Comfort Women Remembrance Day. So now the Korean government, as well as the supporters around the globe, hold various events to commemorate this day.
I see. Could you tell us a bit more about the events, Phyllis, that are held on this particular day?
The groups around the globe, the supporter groups of the grandmas, sometimes post Instagram postings. They sometimes have in-person meetings, symposiums. So there are many things going on at the same time globally.
Right, I see. Phyllis, what would you say then, against that backdrop, of course, what would you say is a global perception of the plight of comfort women as we speak?
Well, the Japanese government, unfortunately, has been spending hundreds of millions of dollars annually in this so-called history war. With that money, Japan is going to the global fora such as the UN, the United States, Germany, the Philippines, and other countries arguing that the women were not forced, but freely and voluntarily joined the rape camp. They say, therefore, the comfort women monuments must be taken down, and this history should not be taught in schools. Well, this is Japan's attempt to deny and evade the responsibility for the institutionalized sexual slavery, but it's not working. Various UN human rights organizations are telling Japan time and again to accept the responsibility for the military sexual slavery. For the foreign cities like Glendale in the US or Berlin in Germany are saying no to Japan's demands to take down the comfort women monuments. A few years ago, Harvard professor Ramsire published a revisionist article describing all Korean comfort women as willing prostitutes, saying that they enter into legitimate contracts, fully knowing what was ahead of them. And his article was met with very heavy denouncements by thousands of scholars around the globe. In the United States, McGraw-Hill, a textbook publisher, included the passage about the comfort women again this year, despite the very heavy pressure from the Japanese government to delete it from this American textbook. So the irony is, the more Japan tries to distort and erase this history, the better the global community realizes Japan's lies and hypocrisy. So I would say the global perception about the comfort women issue is becoming firmer, that this was a state-led, massive-scale human rights violation, and it must be remembered and educated in schools.
Right, of course. Phyllis, as you mentioned, the peace monuments, this particular year also marks the 10th anniversary of the installment of Korea's Comfort Woman statue, also known as the Statue of Peace in Glendale, where you mentioned California. How this U.S. installation, that is the first installation outside of Korea's national borders. How does that make you feel?
I feel very proud that the local Korean American community was able to persuade the Glendale City Council and the local Glendale community to embrace this history as Glendale's own. As time goes by, we are gaining more understanding of the issue that the comfort women issue is not just an issue between Korea and Japan, but it's actually a larger universal human rights issue. And I am happy and proud that our community contributed to bring this conversation and understanding to this American society.
Right, and I hear there's a special event in Glendale to mark the 10-year anniversary of the installation of the Peace Monument in Glendale, that is. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, we just celebrated the 10th anniversary of the Peace Monument in Glendale with more than 200 people from diverse communities, including not only the Koreans, but also the Japanese, the Chinese, and the Filipino Americans. We also had the presence of the mayor of Glendale, the city council members, the state senator Portantino, and the U.S. Congresswoman Judy Chu to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Peace Monument with us. Also, large groups of high school students attended the event and learned about Glendale's fight to keep the monument and what CARE is doing to raise awareness about this history in the United States and beyond. So it was really great to see the strong support coming from the local community as well as the elected officials in the city level, state level, and the federal government level of the United States.
Right, good to know. Phyllis, how did Glendale become the venue of the first installation of the Comfort Woman statue beyond Korea's borders?
Well, after the successful campaign to pass House Resolution 121 in 2007, we were inspired by the first Comfort Women Memorial that was erected in Palisades Park, New Jersey in 2010 by a New York-based Korean American group, KACE. So we formed an organization of our own to build a Comfort Woman Memorial in California. That was in 2012. And we sent more than 100 letters to different California cities and universities. Glendale was one of the places that showed interest. So later, when Glendale mayor visited Korea, and he saw the girl statue in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul, he asked us to bring the girl statue for Glendale instead of the gravestone type design we were planning at the time, so we agreed. So I think it's a good example of a successful collaboration between a local government and a community-based grassroots campaign that defeated a very strong lobby against the historical truth.
Right, indeed. Phyllis, as you mentioned earlier, the Peace Monument of Glendale saw its fair share of opposition from Japan that ended with a legal battle in favor of the presence of the statue in Glendale. Could you walk us through the court case and also include, of course, your efforts to keep that statue standing in Glendale?
Right. In 2014, less than a year after the Peace Monument was installed in Glendale, an ultra-right-wing Japanese-American activist and his organization brought a federal lawsuit against the city of Glendale, claiming that the city of Glendale violated the authority of the federal government of the U.S. to conduct diplomacy by erecting the monument. So they also raised a separate lawsuit in the state court of California. So the lawsuit itself didn't really have much merits, but the purpose of their legal actions was to send a chilling effect for other cities that might be considering an installation of a comfort women monument in their own cities. So with that in mind, we worked closely with the city of Glendale and brought in a pro bono representation from Sidley Austin, a global top 10 international law firm that was very much interested in protecting the First Amendment rights of the small cities. So the case was dismissed in the district court, and the plaintiffs appealed. But it was dismissed again at the appellate court. But contrary to everyone's expectation, they took it all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And now the Japanese Foreign Ministry submitted an amicus brief stepping into the lawsuit to the U.S. Supreme Court, saying that removing the Comfort Women Monument from Glendale's park is Japan's core national interest. So it became very clear that Japanese government was behind the lawsuit all along, and it wasn't just some nutcase individuals who sued the city of Glendale. In 2017, 3 years after the initial filing of the lawsuits, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected to hear the case and sent it back to the lower court, where the initial decision by the district court dismissing the case became final. So I think, in fact, the lawsuit did more favor than harm for our cause because the amount of the international media attention we got, and because of the interest that grew about this issue in the legal community, which contributed to a better understanding of this history and Japan's revisionist position. So Glendale's victory in the court was helpful for Brookhaven, Georgia, and San Francisco's efforts to install their own monument.
Phyllis, broadly speaking then, what else do you suppose served to keep that statue in Glendale, where it stands strong even today?
I think it's a combination of many elements. Most importantly, of course, the historical truth and the struggle of our grandmas were the most important factors that had the greatest impact on everyone's hearts. Well, I think in the United States, the grassroots support from diverse local community is a key element for the local government in order to withstand the constant pressure coming from the revisionist forces, including the Japanese government and mighty power of their money. So also, scholars and educators' roles are important when they speak out against the history revisionism, and academic dishonesty is really powerful. So all these elements will come into place when there is a sound and strong grassroots activism, I think.
Phyllis, what can you share with us about the presence of these comfort women statues beyond Korea and, of course, beyond Glendale?
Well, first of all, in the United States, there are a total of 18 memorials and statues honoring the comfort women. 10 out of these 18 are standing in the public property, which means that the local governments that install them agree with the purpose of the monuments, and they have the will and power to protect them from any harm. The city of San Francisco didn't budge an inch when its Japanese sister city, Osaka, severed the sister city relationship over the comfort women statue of its own design in San Francisco. But we also have to remember the fact that the Japan's efforts to take down or stop these monuments is succeeding in some places, such as Chicago in the US, Washington, D.C. in the US, Germany and the Philippines and other places as well. So it is important to build a formidable international solidarity and support the local government to build a strong campaign to fight historical revisionism.
Which is why, I suppose, Phyllis, you believe that it's very important to push forward yet again with efforts to install more peace monuments then?
That's right. So building public monuments on the comfort women issue, especially outside of Korea, is a wonderful way to defeat Japan's history revisionism because it provides an opportunity for public discourse and education, as well as an opportunity to engage the local community. So another fact is that, comfort women issue has a global relevance these days because of the ongoing problems of the sexual violence against women during military conflict. Think about Ukraine. And the seriousness of human trafficking is a global pandemic. So remembering grandmas, who spoke out and struggled to recover their honor and dignity inspires so many young people and teach the value we want to hand down to the next generation. So I think that's why there are continuing efforts to build comfort women memorials around the globe, and I remain hopeful.
So do I, Phyllis, so do I. Now, here in Korea, Phyllis, only 9 comfort women remain as we speak. And that being said, what more do you suppose can be done to raise better awareness about the atrocities they endured and the sincere apology that they have yet to hear?
Well, first of all, we must preserve their testimonies and make them available in English language. We have to make efforts to provide good video materials for the global audience. We have to work with the educators in the United States and other countries to create quality educational materials to help them teach this history in their classroom. In fact, these have been the kinds of work CARE has been doing in the past few years. And I think the Korean government must work with other victim countries to speak out in the UN and globally to pressure Japan to stop the historical revisionism and accept the historical responsibility and teach this history in Japanese schools. The Korean government should support civil society and artists that are doing great work on raising awareness in and outside of Korea. Last but not least, we must provide all the support we can to keep the surviving grandmas healthy and their legacies remembered inside and outside of Korea.
Of course. And that being said, Phyllis, do share with us some of your plans for the future, of course, with regard to promoting awareness about the plight of these comfort women.
We have been making quality educational materials with educators and the experts to provide to teachers in the United States. We are building an online archive at UCLA Center for Korean Studies where primary source documents, such as the Japanese military documents during World War II, are explained in English language, and other valuable educational materials are provided online. We have worked with Seogang University in Korea for a few years to create conversational video projects called Eternal Testimony with 2 of the surviving Korean grandmas to give students and public an experience of having a conversation with them to learn about their experiences. So now we are ready to launch a beta testing in the United States of that program. Also, we are having a 6-month educational exhibition coming up in Los Angeles from February to July of next year, targeting high school students and college students. So these are some of the work we've been doing during the pandemic and on an ongoing basis.
Finally, Phyllis, comfort women say that Japan has yet to apologize for its atrocities. Japan claims it has. What do you say, Phyllis, to settle this very sad and very shocking chapter of history, to ensure some kind of closure, that is, for comfort women, of course?
Well, when Japan says they have apologized, the question we need to ask is, what were their apologies for? Did they apologize for the military sexual slavery? Did they just feel sorry for the pain and suffering these women went through without acknowledging any responsibility, any state responsibility for creating and operating the system of military sexual slavery and the war crime? Japanese Foreign Ministry's website clearly states that the comfort women were not sex slaves, and there is no evidence of forcible recruitment, which are lies, plain and simple. So it is even worse than no apologies at all, because their lies are designed to deceive the whole world, including the victims. Well, I think Japan will never be a first-class country as long as they continue to deny the past wrong and try to revise history. So now, we cannot force Japan to accept the historical responsibility, but we shouldn't give in to their brazen lies and try to bury this history in the name of security and friendship. Instead, we should broaden our cooperation with the Japanese educators and global community to support the Japan's civil society's struggle against Japanese government's revisionism and help them teach this history in Japan. Our hope lies in the next generation, and their awakenings in the next decades depend on what we teach them today. So we should continue what we're doing today.
And hopefully we'll see the fruits of your commitment in the very near future. Phyllis, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right, well, on that note, we end this edition of Issues and Insiders. As always, thank you for watching.